Everyone talks about the Mongol juggernaut rolling through Eurasia, Baghdad burned, Russia conquered, China fallen. But there's a river where 500 warships go in and none come out. Where 170,000 men march south and maybe a handful walk home. The Bach Dang River in northern Vietnam, April 9th, 1288. A fleet commander named Omar bin Nars al-Din, son of the Khwarezmian governor, decorated veteran from the Song conquest, watches his ships crack apart on submerged wooden stakes as the tide drops. Who stops Kublai Khan when he's already taken half the world? How do you trap an armada that conquered the Song dynasty? What happens when guerrilla fighters perfect a tactic so brutal it gets used twice in 350 years? December 17th, 1287. Prince Toan, Kublai's son, sails from Qinzhou with 500 warships commanded by Omar and Fan Yi. 70,000 Mongol regulars, 21,000 tribal auxiliaries from Yunnan and Hainan, 18,000 sailors, 70 transport vessels. The plan: sail through Bach Dang River, link with Togan's land force at Van Keep, then crush the Tran dynasty once and for all. This is the third invasion. First time, 1257, Uryankadai takes the capital Thanglong, massacres the population, leaves when disease and heat break his supply lines. Second time, 1284, Sogetu captures the capital again, retreats when Vietnamese counterattacks at Truong Duong and Tai Ket kill his commanders Li Hung and force withdrawal. Kublai Khan is furious. He abandons plans for a third invasion of Japan to focus everything on Vietnam. 170,000 total troops for this campaign, largest force the Mongols ever sent to Southeast Asia. If you value documented military history and tactical warfare like this, subscribe. It's the best way to support our work. Also, comment from which city you're hearing this from. This script is researched and factual, using sources from the Vietnam National Museum of History's published description of Bach Dang wooden stakes discovered in 1976 in Toan River, Yen Hung District, and from the Encyclopedia of Mongolia and the Mongol Empire by Christopher Pratt Atwood, published 2004 by Facts on File. These aren't general history books. These are archaeological reports and specialized encyclopedias tracking carbon-dated physical evidence and Yuan dynasty military records, cross-referenced with Tran dynasty chronicles. Now back to the information. The man waiting for Omar is Tran Quoc Toan, born 1228, Tazing, son of Prince Tran Lo. The Vietnamese call him Tran Hung Dao, Grand Prince Hung Dao, Duc Than Tran, Saint Tran. He's 60 years old in 1288. He's already beaten the Mongols once in 1285, when he selected muddy battlefields where cavalry couldn't deploy, when he used scorched earth and guerrilla strikes to bleed Sugetu's force until few made it back to China. The Mongols call him a demon. The Vietnamese pray to him as a saint even before he dies. His tactic for 1288, copied Ngo Quyen, 938, 350 years earlier. Ngo Quyen planted iron-tipped stakes in Bach Dang River, lured the southern Han fleet onto them at high tide, then watched the tide drop and impale 20,000 Chinese sailors. Tran Hung Dao read the chronicles. He knows the river. He knows the tides. February 3rd, 1288, Togan's land force captures Thanglong, Hanoi. The capital is empty. No grain, no people. The Tran king fled to the sea. Togan orders his generals to sweep the Red River Delta, pillaging crops. The Yuan army is large, unsustainable, starving. They're waiting for Zhang Wenhu's supply fleet. Late January, Prince Hung Dao and Prince Tran Khan do wait at Van Don Isle with 30 warships. Zhang's supply fleet passes. The Vietnamese attack. Zhang's fleet takes substantial damage. He turns back to Hainan Island. Other supply ships blow away in northeast monsoon winds. The Yuan army in Thanglong doesn't know. Togan orders his generals to forage. They find scorched fields, burned granaries. The king of Dai Viet says it clearly. What the Yuan forces need most is food. They haven't heard about the supply fleet. They're planning offensive action. March 5th. Togan retreats from Thanglong to Van Keep, the fortified Yuan base northeast of Hanoi. 25 days later, March 30th, food supplies hit critical. Togan orders full retreat to China. He boards a large warship. Prince Hung Dao prepares. The Vietnamese destroy every bridge, block every road, create traps along the retreat routes. Togan's land force pushes toward Lang Son. April 10th, Togan himself gets hit by a poisoned arrow. He abandons his ship, avoids highways, escapes through forests to Siming in Guangxi with a handful of troops. Most of his land force dies or gets captured. The generals Abachi and Fanji die in the bloody retreat. But Omar's fleet is still intact. March 1288. Tran Hung Dao knows Omar will retreat by water. The Bach Dang River runs through Yen Hung District in Quang Ninh Province and Thuy Nguyen in Haiphong before reaching the sea. Same river where Ngo Quyen destroyed the Han. Hung Dao spends weeks preparing the battlefield. Ironwood, teak, massive logs cut from forests, hauled to riverbanks, sharpened into points. Archaeological evidence from 1976, stakes 1.5 to 3 meters long, dark brown from water corrosion, one end driven into the river base, one end pointed with many fissures. Average distance between stakes, 0.9 to 1.2 meters, some vertical, some inclined 45 degrees to target boats near the riverbank. Each stake planted 2.5 meters deep with holes at the top for leverage. Diameter 20 to 50 centimeters, placed 5 to 7 meters apart in rows, some angled 15 to 20 degrees west or south. The stake yard covers at least 950 square meters. Carbon dating confirms 1270 to 1430. Right time period, right location. Hung Dao studies the tides. During high tide, the stakes are submerged. Light boats can barely pass over. During low tide, the river becomes impassable. Any heavy barge hits the stakes. The trap needs precision timing. Hung Dao hides his fleet in smaller tributary rivers behind Genkok Reef, Dongkok, Phongkok, along the Koi River, Tai River, Jia Duok River, Dien Kong River. Land troops deploy in Hung Yen along the left bank of Bach Dang, more troops at Trang Ken on the right bank, more on Mount Davoy. The Vietnamese flotilla is small. Hundreds of light junks against 500 Yuan warships. But Hung Dao isn't trying to win a fair fight. He's buying time until the tide turns. Early April, Omar receives orders to retreat. Togan's land force is collapsing. The supply situation is hopeless. Groups of partisans harass the Yuan at Van Keep. Bridges destroyed, roads blocked. Omar leads the fleet down Bach Dang River on April 9th, 1288. Infantry escorts the ships. It's early morning, high tide, the water is deep. Omar's fleet enters the trap. The Vietnamese flotilla appears, small boats. They attack the Yuan formation, then they retreat. Omar pursues. This is what Hung Dao wants. The Yuan fleet moves deep into Bach Dang River, chasing the Vietnamese boats. The combat formation spreads out, ships accelerate, then Hung Dao's troops wait, the tide ebbs, the water level drops, stakes begin to emerge. The first Yuan warship hits. The hull cracks. The ship lists. More ships pile into the stake field. The wooden points punch through hulls. Ships break apart. Others try to turn. Too late. The river is packed with vessels. 500 warships crammed into a narrow channel. The stakes don't care. The Vietnamese boats barely cleared the obstacles because they're light, because their captains know the exact depths, because Hung Dao timed the retreat to the minute. But Yuan warships are heavy. Built for ocean combat, they smash into the stakes with full weight. Hundreds of Vietnamese boats return. They pour from every tributary. Fire ships rush forward. Arrows rain from the banks. Stones. Incendiary materials. The land army under Tran Hung Dao and the Tran king appears on shore. The Mongols try to abandon ship. They jump into the river. Vietnamese soldiers board the stuck vessels. Hand-to-hand combat. The Yuan crews are trained. Omar is a decorated naval commander. He fought in the Song conquest in 1278. He repulsed a Song counterattack on Guangzhou. He led 20,000 troops against Champa in 1284. He commanded Zhang Hongfan's leading fleet from Guangzhou to the final Song battles. But skill doesn't matter when your ship is impaled on a stake and enemy troops swarm the deck. Fan Yi sees Omar's section of the fleet destroyed. His command ships are surrounded by Vietnamese junks. He tries to escape, jumps into the river. Vietnamese soldiers kill him in the water. The battle lasts from sunrise to sundown. When darkness falls, the Yuan fleet is gone. 400 warships captured. 100 destroyed or burned. Thousands of Yuan troops drown or die fighting. Omar is captured alive. The Vietnamese take him prisoner. Some sources say he's executed. Other sources say he survives captivity until 1289, when King Tran Han Tong agrees to send him back to Kublai, but Prince Hung Dao opposes the gesture, so he arranges for the ship transporting Omar to sink at sea. Either way, Omar never sees China again. The numbers hit hard. The Yuan send 170,000 troops total across the third invasion. Togan's land force suffers catastrophic losses during the retreat through Langsun. Tens of thousands die in ambushes. Only a handful make it back. The naval force, 500 warships, 18,000 sailors, infantry escorts, is completely destroyed at Bach Dang. 6,000 enemy troops annihilated in one day. Some estimates say the entire fleet carried more men. If you count Marines, support crews, the infantry escort, the losses run higher. Zhang Wenhu's supply fleet already took major damage in January. When he sails into Bach Dang days after the main battle, unaware the Yuan armies have collapsed, the Vietnamese navy destroys his transports. Only Wenhu and a few soldiers escape. Several thousand more Yuan troops get lost in unfamiliar terrain. never rejoin the main force, die in the jungle or at the hands of Hmong and Yao fighters. Kublai Khan receives the news. His son, Togan, failed. His best naval commander captured or dead. His entire expedition annihilated. Kublai is beyond rage. He banishes Togan to Yangzhou for life, commands he never wants to see him again. The emperor who conquered the Song dynasty, who rules the largest empire on earth, who sent armies to Japan and Java and Burma. He can't break Vietnam. The Mongols never invade again. The tributary relationship resumes in name only. King Tran Hung Dao eventually accepts nominal supremacy to avoid further conflict, but he refuses to go to the Yuan court in person. Kublai detains his envoy Dao Tuqi in 1293. Kublai's successor, Timur Khan, releases all envoys in the late 1290s, settles for a tribute relationship that continues until the Yuan dynasty ends in 1368. But there's no fourth invasion, no revenge campaign. The Mongols tried 3 times. 3 times they took the capital. 3 times they retreated with massive casualties. The 3rd time broke them. Prince Hung Dao returns to Van Keep. He lives humbly. The king summons him occasionally for national or military affairs. In 1300, he falls ill. He dies of natural causes at age 73 in Van Keep. His body is cremated. His ashes are scattered under his favorite oak tree on his family estate near Thang Long. The Vietnamese intend a lavish royal mausoleum and official ceremony, but Hung Dao declines in his will, wants a simple private ceremony. The emperor posthumously grants him the title Hung Dao Dai Vuong, Grand Prince Hung Dao. The people deify him. Duc Than Tran, Sant Tran, Cu Tien Vu Day, temples across Vietnam, streets named after him in every major city. Hanoi's Tran Hung Dao Street, formerly Boulevard Gambetta under the French. Ho Chi Minh City has Tran Hung Dao Road through Chinatown, hosts the police and fire headquarters. Da Nang's Tran Hung Dao Road runs along the Han River waterfront. Hai Phong Road links the Opera House and the Cam River. Even Westminster, California has a statue with Bolsa Avenue renamed Dai Lo Tran Hung Dao, Tran Hung Dao Boulevard. A Gepard-class frigate commissioned in 2018 for the Vietnam People's Navy bears his name. The tactic spreads. Vietnamese military academies study Bach Dang. 20th century guerrilla warfare borrows the principles. Use terrain. Know the ground better than the enemy. Avoid pitched battles until conditions favor you. Mobilize the entire population for national resistance. During the Indochina Wars from 1946 to 1975, North Vietnamese forces used similar strategies against the French and Americans. Ho Chi Minh cites Tran Hung Dao. The mobilization model, every citizen a soldier, every village a fortress, comes directly from Hung Dao's writings. His work, Hich Dong Si, Encouragement to Soldiers, written before the Second Mongol invasion in 1284, presents the doctrine: patriotism above all, unify individual interest with collective and national interest. The strength of an army lies in quality, not numbers. To his anxious king he says, our troops are better trained. The enemy has lost morale after defeat. Victory will be easier. He makes his generals swear an oath before crossing the Hoa River. If the Mongols are not defeated, we will not recross this river. He forces his troops to put their backs to the river at Bach Dang, fight or die. No retreat. That's the choice. The Mongol invasions teach Vietnam something the French and Americans rediscover the hard way. You can't hold territory when the population won't cooperate. Toan takes Thang Long in February 1288. Finds it empty. No food, no people, no supplies. He sends foraging parties. They find burned fields. The civilian population evacuated. The Tran kings implement scorched earth before the enemy arrives. When the Mongols need grain, there's none. When they need local guides, villagers disappear. When they need roads and bridges, everything's destroyed. Guerrilla fighters strike supply lines. Partisan groups harass camps. The terrain works against cavalry. Muddy rice paddies, dense forests, tropical heat and disease, monsoon rains. The Vietnamese select battlefields where Mongol advantages mean nothing. At Tay Ket near Hung Yen in 1285, the muddy Red River grounds trap cavalry units. Vietnamese infantry slaughters them. Soga Tu and Li Heng die. At Truong Duong, Prince Quang Kai counterattacks, while Yuan troops advance down the Hong River. Togon evacuates. The pattern repeats in 1288. The Vietnamese don't fight fair, they fight smart. The stakes at Bach Dang become symbols. When people dig dikes in 1953, they discover the stake yard. Initially, locals pull up piles for rafters and construction before archaeologists realize what they found. Subsequent excavations uncover hundreds of stakes. Most are ironwood, 2.6 to 2.8 meters long, 20 to 30 centimeters in diameter. Arranged in zigzag shape, some vertical, some inclined 15 degrees east. The The beveled part measures 0.8 to 1 meter. Stakes lie 0.5 to 1.5 meters underground. The protected area covers 220 square meters. 42 stakes remain intact 2 meters under mud, jutting out 0.2 to 2 meters. Density varies, 1 stake per 0.9 to 1 square meter in the southern section, 1 per 1.5 to 2 square meters in the northern section. In 1976, more stakes are discovered in Chan River, Yen Hung District, Quang Ninh Province, dark brown, 1.5 to 3 meters long, corroded from centuries underwater. The Vietnam Institute of Archaeology excavates Cao Quai Stake Yard in Lien Kay Commune, Tuy Nguyen District in late 2019, 950 square meters. 27 wooden stakes dating from 1270 to 1430. Carbon dating confirms these are battle relics. Historian Levan Lan examines the 2019 discovery. His analysis, published in December 2019, the 1288 battle was a 3-phase operation, not an isolated river engagement. Phase 1, deploy soldiers to exhaust enemy resources and strength, guerrilla harassment, supply line attacks. Scorched earth. Phase 2, block the Mongol fleet from taking shortcuts via creeks, force them to the Bach Dang River, destroy bridges and roads so they can't retreat by land. Phase 3, the trap itself. Stakes planted during low tide over weeks of preparation. Small Vietnamese flotilla times the engagement to the tides. Mongol fleet pursues into the stake field at high tide. Tide drops, ships impale, Vietnamese forces swarm. This isn't luck. This is engineered warfare based on intimate knowledge of local geography and tidal patterns. The Bach Dang tactic works because it's simple and brutal. You need a tidal river. You need forests to cut stakes. You need weeks to prepare. You need to lure the enemy in at high tide. You need to time the retreat so the tide drops while enemy ships are committed. You need overwhelming force once the ships are stuck. None of this requires advanced technology. Iron-tipped wooden stakes, light boats that can clear the obstacles, knowledge of tides, discipline to execute. The Vietnamese use it in 938 against the Southern Han. They use it in 981 against the Song. They use it in 1288 against the Yuan. 3 victories on the same river using the same tactic across 350 years. Each time, northern invaders try to conquer via naval route. Each time, they walk into the trap. The surrounding Asian states watch. The Mongols fail in Vietnam. The news spreads. Minor kingdoms gain confidence. Champa to the south, already fighting Mongol incursions, sees that resistance works. The Mongol aura of invincibility cracks. Kublai conquered the Song. He controls China, Mongolia, Korea is a vassal, Tibet is subdued, but he can't break a kingdom a fraction of his empire's size. The Vietnamese population numbers nowhere near the Mongol armies, yet they win. The Mongol invasions of Japan in 1274 and 1281 fail due to storms and Japanese resistance. The invasion of Java in 1293 under Igmish fails due to tropical disease and local resistance. Vietnam is part of a pattern. The Mongol Empire reaches its geographical limits. Kublai's ambitions to conquer all of Southeast Asia die on the Bach Dang River. After Bach Dang, celebrations erupt across Vietnam. The Tran dynasty holds ceremonies. Poets write verses. Emperor Tran Minh Tong, who rules from 1300 to 1357, writes the poem Bach Dang River while visiting the battle site. Scholar Pham Su Men, 1300 to 1384, writes a poem depicting the battle. The dynasty scholar Nguyen Trai, 1380 to 1442, writes Bach Dang Hai Cao while visiting the location. The battle enters Vietnamese cultural memory as a defining moment. The underdog kingdom that refused to submit. The general who matched wits with the world's greatest empire. The trap that destroyed 500 ships. The river that stopped the Mongol advance. Later, Vietnamese dynasties cite Bach Dang when facing Chinese invasions. The Ming invade in 1457. The Qing invade multiple times. Each time, Vietnamese commanders study Tran Hung Dao's writings. The pattern holds: avoid pitched battles, use guerrilla tactics, select terrain that negates enemy advantages, mobilize the population, exhaust the invader's will to continue. If you value factual history with documented sources and archaeological evidence, subscribe now. Also comment what you think about this story. This research comes from peer-reviewed sources, including the Vietnam Institute of Archaeology's excavation reports published in December 2019 in Nhan Dan Online, covering the Cao Quai stake yard findings with carbon dating and geographical surveys, cross-referenced with historical maps. And from military history analysis in Patricia Pelly's Post-Colonial Vietnam, New Histories of the National Past, published 2002, by Duke University Press, analyzing Vietnamese historiography of the Mongol invasions. These are specialist academic sources with fieldwork and primary document analysis. Now back to the story. The stakes themselves reveal engineering brilliance. The pointed ends show deliberate shaping. The angle of incline, 45 degrees for stakes near the riverbank. Vertical for stakes in deeper water, shows understanding of ship behavior. Boats near shore hug the bank, so angled stakes catch them. Boats in the channel sit deeper, so vertical stakes work. The spacing, 0.9 to 1.2 meters, is too narrow for Yuan warships to navigate, but wide enough that Vietnamese junks with shallow drafts can slip through at high tide if captains know the exact layout. Hung Dao's troops memorize the stake field. They practice runs. They know which gaps allow passage. The Yuan crews don't. When they pursue Vietnamese boats into the stake field, they follow blindly. The retreating Vietnamese boats lead them through the few safe passages at high tide. When the tide drops, those passages close, stakes emerge. The Yuan fleet is trapped in a forest of wooden spears. Fire tactics amplify the destruction. Vietnamese sources mention fire rafts, small boats packed with flammable materials. Once the Yuan ships are stuck, fire rafts rush forward. Wooden hulls catch, flames spread, sailors jump into the river to escape the fire. Vietnamese troops on the banks shoot them. Those who reach shore face soldiers trained in hand-to-hand combat. The Tran King himself is present with Hung Dao. Royal authority legitimizes the slaughter. This isn't a border skirmish. This is national survival. Every Vietnamese soldier knows, if they lose, the Mongols will occupy the country, install a puppet ruler, extract tribute, conscript Vietnamese men for future campaigns. The stakes, political stakes, not just wooden stakes, are total. Fight or submit to Kublai Khan. There's no middle ground. Omar's capture is strategic. The Yuan need him back. He's a valuable commander, experienced, connected. His father Nasser al-Din is the Mongol-appointed Khwarezmian governor of Yunnan. Omar commanded fleets during the Song conquest. He has institutional knowledge. Kublai wants him returned. In 1289, King Tran Hung Dao agrees to exchange prisoners, but Prince Hung Dao opposes. He understands. Returning Omar gives the Yuan a skilled naval commander. Omar knows Vietnamese tactics now. He survived Bach Dang. He knows the mistake, pursuing into an unfamiliar tidal river without scouting for obstacles. If he returns, he'll advise future invasions. Hung Dao arranges for the transport ship to sink. Omar drowns. The official story is an accident. The reality is assassination. Hung Dao thinks strategically. Peace negotiations happen at the diplomatic level. War continues at the operational level. Eliminating Omar is a war measure dressed as tragedy. The Vietnamese population pays a price. Scorched earth means burning your own fields. Evacuating the capital means leaving homes. Guerrilla warfare means constant movement, hiding, risk of Mongol reprisals. The Mongols loot Thang Long. They desecrate King Tran Tai Tong's tomb in Tai Binh province in February 1288. They pillage villages looking for food. UN commanders order widespread foraging. Vietnamese civilians face violence, theft, destruction. But the population supports the war effort because the alternative is worse. Mongol occupation means permanent subjection. The Song dynasty fell. Southern China is now Yuan territory. If Vietnam falls, the Tran dynasty ends. Kublai installs a puppet, probably Tran Ichtak, the defector prince who went to the Yuan court in 1286. Vietnamese independence disappears, so the population endures. They burn their grain stores to deny the enemy. They evacuate cities. They guide guerrilla fighters through forests. They plant the stakes in Bach Dang River. It's a collective effort. Hung Dao mobilizes everyone. His doctrine: the nation is one body, the army is the fist, the people are the strength. The aftermath reshapes East Asian geopolitics. The Yuan dynasty continues. Kublai dies in 1294. Timur Khan succeeds him, but the Yuan never invade Vietnam again. The cost-benefit doesn't work. 3 invasions, 3 failures, massive casualties, logistical nightmares, tropical diseases, terrain unsuited for cavalry. The Vietnamese fight with fanatic determination. The Mongols can conquer steppe empires, sedentary kingdoms, even fortified cities with siege equipment. But they can't conquer a jungle kingdom that refuses to stand and fight, that evacuates cities before occupation, that bleeds supply lines until armies starve. The Vietnamese model becomes a template. How to resist a superior force? Don't engage on enemy terms. Use geography, exhaust their will, wait for the decisive moment. Bach Dang is the decisive moment. Once the fleet is destroyed, Toan has no naval support. His land force can't withdraw by sea. They retreat overland, take catastrophic losses. The two-pronged invasion strategy collapses. The Mongols don't try it again. Vietnamese military thought evolves. Tran Hung Dao's writings influence centuries of commanders. His key insight: wars are won before the battle. Preparation matters more than courage. Knowing the terrain matters more than troop numbers. Discipline matters more than equipment. Mobility matters more than fortifications. He studies Chinese military classics, Sun Tzu, Wu Qi, but adapts them to Vietnamese conditions. Sun Tzu says, know yourself and know your enemy. Hung Dao says, know the land. The Red River Delta is your ally. The forests hide your troops. The monsoons drown enemy camps. The tides trap enemy ships. Use everything. The Mongols have cavalry, siege engines, experienced generals, numerical superiority. The Vietnamese have intimate knowledge of local conditions, a motivated population, and a strategic doctrine built on asymmetric advantages. It's enough. The battle enters world military history. Analysts compare Bach Dang to other great ambushes. Cannae in 216 BC, when Hannibal encircled 8 Roman legions. Teutoburg Forest in 9 AD, when Arminius destroyed 3 Roman legions. Agincourt in 1415, when English longbows devastated French cavalry. Cowpens in 1781, when Daniel Morgan trapped Banastri Tarleton. Bach Dang ranks with these. The circumstances differ, but the principle is the same. Inferior force uses terrain, timing, and deception to destroy superior enemy. Hung Dao has fewer ships. His sailors are less experienced than Yuan crews, but he has the river, the tides, the stakes, and the plan. He executes flawlessly. Omar walks into the trap because he doesn't know the river, because his scouts don't detect submerged stakes, because the Vietnamese retreat looks genuine. It's the oldest trick in warfare. Feigned retreat, enemy pursues, trap springs. The Mongols used it themselves at Liegnitz in 1241 when they lured Polish knights into an ambush. At Bach Dang, the tactic turns against them. The 1288 battle becomes the template Vietnamese forces used for centuries. When the Ming invade in the early 1500s, Vietnamese commander Le Loy studies Hung Dao. He uses guerrilla tactics. He avoids pitched battles until Chinese supply lines are overstretched. Then he strikes. The Chinese retreat. When the Qing invade, the pattern repeats. When the French colonize in the 19th century. Vietnamese resistance movements cite Hung Dao. When the Americans send troops in the 1960s, North Vietnamese strategists reference Bach Dang, the river, the stakes, the trap, the patience, the willingness to trade space for time. The knowledge that foreign armies can take cities but can't hold jungles. The playbook is written in 1288. It works against the French at Dien Bien Phu in 1954, when Viet Minh forces surround and obliterate the French garrison. It works against the Americans during Tet Offensive in 1968, when coordinated attacks across South Vietnam break American public will. The tactics evolve, modern weapons, different terrain, but the strategic principle remains. Use asymmetric advantages, exhaust the invader, wait for the decisive blow. 3 temples stand near the Bach Dang battlefield. One honors Ngo Quyen, who defeated the Southern Han in 938. One honors Le Dai Han, who defeated the Song in 981. One honors Tran Hung Dao, who defeated the Yuan in 1288. 3 victories. 3 commanders, 1 river. The temples are built in traditional architectural style with natural wood and stone. Intricately carved stone bridges lead to statues of the heroes near the Bach Dang Wharf. The site becomes a pilgrimage destination. Students visit to learn history. Veterans visit to honor the military tradition. Tourists visit to see where the Mongol Empire stopped. A new road connects the temples. Signage explains the battles. The stake yards are protected now. Water fills the ponds for conservation. The government invests $18.6 million in 2020 to preserve the historical relic in Cao Quai village. Prime Minister Nguyen Xuan Phuc attends the ceremony. The Bach Dang battlefield is a special national monument. It's sacred ground. Modern Vietnamese identity is built partially on resistance to foreign invasion. The Mongol victories are cornerstone events. They prove a small nation can defeat a superpower through superior strategy, discipline, and national unity. The lessons resonate. During the Chinese-Vietnam War in 1979, Vietnamese forces repel Chinese invasion forces. The Vietnamese military studies Hung Dao's tactics. The pattern continues. China invades, Vietnam resists, China withdraws. It's happened for 1,000 years. It happens again in 79. Hung Dao's ghost still fights. His tactics still work. The river still flows through Quang Ninh province. The stakes are long gone, pulled up, rotted, buried. But archaeologists keep finding more. Every excavation confirms the stories. The battle happened. The stakes were real. The trap worked. 500 ships destroyed. Thousands dead. The Mongol Empire stopped at the water's edge. Kublai Khan dies bitter. He conquers China. He rules from Beijing. He builds a dynasty that lasts 98 years. But he can't take Vietnam. 3 invasions, 3 defeats. The third is the worst. 170,000 men sent to south, maybe 10,000 return. The fleet is gone. The commander's dead or captured, his son disgraced. The cost in silver, supplies, prestige is catastrophic. Surrounding kingdoms note the failure. If the Mongols can't conquer Vietnam, maybe they can be resisted elsewhere. The Mongol advance slows. The empire stabilizes at existing borders. The dream of conquering Southeast Asia dies. Burma becomes a vassal state after initial Mongol victories, but full conquest fails. Java repels an invasion in 1293. Champa submits nominally but maintains independence. The pattern spreads. The Mongols control the steppes in China. They don't control the jungles. In 2019, archaeologists at Khao Kwai village uncover a section of stake yard that matches historical descriptions of the Van Moy copper stake yard and Mon Gua copper stake yard, discovered in 2005 and 2010 respectively. Multiple stake fields, rows of wooden stakes spanning kilometers of riverbed. The Bach Dang ambush wasn't one trap. It was a series of interlocking obstacles. If enemy ships bypassed one stake field, they hit another. The Vietnamese created a killing zone, a stretch of river where navigation is impossible at low tide. The entire defensive line forms a V shape covering the throat of the Bach Dang. Two sides of stakes converge at a rocky dune. When the tide drops, boats can't cross the dune. They're forced close to shore where angled stakes wait. It's a masterpiece of medieval engineering. No blueprints survive, no written plans, but the physical evidence is unmistakable. Someone designed this. Someone calculated tide heights, ship drafts, stake placements. That someone is Tran Hung Dao. April 9th, 1288, sunrise. Omar's fleet enters Bach Dang River. By sundown, the fleet is gone. One day. 12 hours. The battle that ends Mongol ambitions in Southeast Asia takes one day. Historians call it one of the most decisive battles in Asian history. The stakes, literal and figurative, couldn't be higher. If Omar's fleet survives, the Yuan can try again. They can resupply Toan, they can hold Van Keep, they can launch a fourth invasion, but Omar's fleet doesn't survive. The Vietnamese destroy it completely. 400 ships captured, hundreds more destroyed. The Yuan retreat turns into a rout. The third invasion ends in total failure. The Mongols never return. The archaeological evidence keeps accumulating. Stake discoveries in 1953, 1959, 1976, 2005E, 2010, 2019. Each excavation adds detail. The stakes are ironwood, dense, durable, resistant to rot. They're sharpened with metal tools. The cuts are precise, the angles are calculated. The placement follows a defensive logic. This isn't improvised. This is systematic military engineering. The Vietnamese spent months preparing. They cut thousands of trees. They transported logs to the river. They carved points. They drove stakes into the riverbed at low tide. They arranged them in patterns designed to trap ships. They tested the layout. They practiced maneuvers. When Omar's fleet arrives, everything is ready. The trap is set. All Hung Dao needs is to spring it. The Vietnamese flotilla's role is critical. If they don't engage Omar, he might proceed cautiously. He might send scouts. He might detect the stakes. But the Vietnamese attack immediately. They make it look like a real fight, then they retreat. Omar thinks he's winning. He's chasing a beaten enemy. His ships accelerate. They spread out to prevent the Vietnamese from escaping. The formation widens. Discipline breaks. Speed increases. It's the moment Hung Dao wants. Maximum aggression. Maximum commitment. The Vietnamese boats lead Omar deeper into the stake field. At the precise moment, calculated based on tide tables, tested over weeks, the Vietnamese stop retreating and slip through the safe gaps. The Yuan fleet follows, can't follow. The water level drops, stakes appear, ships hit. The physics are simple. A warship weighs tons, moving at speed. It has momentum. When the hull hits a submerged stake, the wood punches through. The ship doesn't stop. It drives itself onto the stake. The bow rises, the stern settles, the ship lists, water floods in. The crew panics. Nearby ships try to avoid. They hit other stakes. Within minutes, the entire fleet is tangled. Ships collide. Crews shout. Officers try to restore order. Impossible. The tide keeps dropping. More stakes emerge. The forest of wooden spears spreads across the river. Ships are impaled everywhere. Then the Vietnamese counterattack. Hundreds of boats return. Soldiers board the stuck ships. The UN crews fight back. They're trained. They're equipped. But they're stuck on disabled ships. The Vietnamese have mobility. They choose which ships to attack. They concentrate force. They use fire. They use arrows from the banks. The land army joins. It's a coordinated massacre. The UN defense collapses, not because they lack courage, but because their situation is hopeless. You can't fight effectively when your ship is sinking. Officers shout orders. Crews try to cut free. Axes chop at stakes. Doesn't work. The stakes are ironwood. driven 2.5 meters into the riverbed. You can't cut through fast enough. Some crews abandon ship, swim for shore. Vietnamese troops are waiting. The shoreline becomes a killing ground. Those who reach the banks face fresh soldiers. Those who stay on the ships burn or drown. Those who surrender become prisoners. By sunset, it's over. The number 400, captured ships, tells the story. The UN started with 500 warships, 400 captured, 100 destroyed or burned. The math is total. The UN fleet ceases to exist as a fighting force. 400 intact warships is a fortune in resources. The Vietnamese salvage them, repair them, add them to their own navy. One day of fighting shifts the naval balance of power in the region. The UN lose their Southeast Asian fleet. The Vietnamese gain it. The strategic implications are enormous. Without naval superiority, the UN can't invade by sea again. Without ships to transport supplies, they can't sustain land invasions. The Bach Dang disaster doesn't just destroy Omar's fleet. It ends Yuan naval power in Southeast Asia permanently. Togan's fate is humiliation. April 10th, he's wounded by a poisoned arrow at Lang Son. He abandons his command, escapes through forests, reaches Guangxi with a skeleton force, returns to the Yuan capital. Kublai banishes him to Yangzhou. The official histories record it clearly. Kublai angrily banished Togan to Yangzhou for life. The emperor never wants to see his son again. It's a disgrace. Togan led the largest invasion force the Mongols ever sent to Southeast Asia. He had every advantage: numbers, equipment, experience, logistics. He failed completely. Kublai blames him. The shame is permanent. Other generals die in the retreat. Abachi, Fanji. Fan Yi jumps into the Bach Dang River trying to escape. Vietnamese soldiers kill him. Omar is captured. The senior leadership of the invasion is gone. Dead, captured, or disgraced. The UN military prestige takes a catastrophic hit. The Vietnamese sources celebrate for good reason. They faced annihilation. If the third invasion succeeds, the Tran dynasty falls. Vietnamese independence ends. The country becomes a Yuan province. Tribute and conscription follow. Vietnamese men serve in Mongol armies. Vietnamese resources feed Mongol campaigns. It's what happened to Korea, to Tibet, to southern China. The Song dynasty resisted for decades. It fell in 1279. The Yuan absorbed it. Southern China becomes Yuan territory. Millions of Chinese live under Mongol rule. Vietnam avoids that fate because Tran Hung Dao wins at Bach Dang. One battle, one river, one day. The entire future of Vietnamese independence hinges on it. Hung Dao delivers. The stakes get driven. The fleet gets trapped. The victory is complete. Then nothing. No fourth invasion. The Yuan focus elsewhere. Kublai's health declines. He dies in 1294. Timur Khan inherits a stable empire. He doesn't need Vietnam. The tributary relationship is enough. Token submissions, periodic envoys. The Yuan are satisfied. Vietnamese independence is secure. The Tran dynasty continues until 1400. The Mongol threat is over. Across Vietnam, the celebrations reflect relief as much as triumph. The existential threat passed. The nation survived. The independence is preserved. All because one general understood tides and stakes and timing. The excavation in 2019 at Khao Kwai village closes with a finding that reframes everything. The stake yard isn't just at the battle site. It extends along multiple locations. Van Moy Copper Stake Yard, 6,000 square meters. Nearly 200 stakes discovered in 2005. Ma Ngua Copper Stake Yard, 2,100 square meters. Discovered in 2010. Sao Kwai Stake Yard, 950 square meters, 27 stakes. Discovered in 2019. The three yards are connected. They form a defensive network. The Bach Dang ambush was larger than historians thought. Not one trap, but a system of traps. Multiple stake fields covering different sections of the river. If the Yuan fleet bypassed one field, another awaited. The entire lower Bach Dang River was weaponized. Vietnamese engineers turned geography into a killing machine. And it's still there, buried in mud, preserved by water. 700 years later, archaeologists dig it up and confirm the stories are true. 500 ships go in, none come out. 170,000 men march south. A handful walk home. The Bach Dang River, April 9th, 1288. Where the Mongol Empire breaks,